Welcome to CRK Training Blog. I'm Callie King, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the topic of using food in training. So this is a topic that I've discussed before in videos and different articles that I've written, but it's an area where I still get a lot of questions. People are really interested in using food, but a lot of times they're either concerned with some of the ideas that it could cause bad behavior, that it could cause pushiness or aggressive behaviors, and also they're not quite sure how to use it, what kind of treats they should use, and why it's really important, and kind of where food can fit into a good training program. So I'd like to go over these ideas for you today. So there's three main topics that we're going to cover. The first one is why food can be such an important part of your training. The second thing we'll discuss is the kind of myths of bad behavior that are created by food. And then the third thing that we'll discuss is some of the tools that you can use when you are doing positive reinforcement and using reward-based training. And then also some different types of treats that you can use with your horse. Let's begin by talking about why food can be such an important part of a training program. So food is a powerful motivator for most individuals. Some horses are going to be a lot more food motivated than others. But what food does is it basically creates a horse that is more engaged and more interactive in the training process. So it gives the horse something that they're working for. It kind of gives them a bit more of an external reason to try to figure out what's being asked so that they can get that reward. Food is also very useful for creating good associations. So if we have something that the horse is fearful of, or if we have something that the horse doesn't like, we can use food to change the association that horse has with that thing. So for example, if we have a horse that is really scared of injections, we can actually use food and rewards when we're touching the horse's neck in that injection spot and kind of gradually working up to actually giving an injection. We can use rewards to create a positive association around that process, as well as actually rewarding the horse for, standing still and keeping his head down, etc. The other thing that food can be really helpful for is in relaxation. So there's something about the act of chewing that seems to have a calming effect on the horse. Now, of course, positive reinforcement isn't the only tool or the only method that should be in our toolbox. It does have its limitations, and it honestly does have its dangers. So the main limitations are, if a horse is in such a high state of anxiety or fear, sometimes they simply won't take a reward. So they're kind of past that emotional threshold where they're not at all interested in eating, and in that case, it basically loses its power as a motivation. And also, I tend to believe personally that the best training approach is one that uses a variety of different methods and tools. So there are certainly ways that even something like positive reinforcement, which just the sound of it, the connotations that we have of positive reinforcement, we think that it should be, really good all the time, but there's ways that even positive reinforcement could be unethical. For example, if a horse was restricted from food and then given food in training, we run into the same ethical question there as we do when we're using pressures or we're using punishments. So the main key is to think of food and positive reinforcement as a very valuable tool in your training. Start experimenting with it, start using it, but think about it as part of kind of your balanced approach to your training. One of the main arguments that is presented against using food, or where food is discouraged, is that horses are going to get pushy and that they're going to start showing aggressive behaviors like maybe biting or kicking or pinning their ears in order to try to take the treats. So while this can certainly develop, it's not a result of simply the fact that we're using food. Instead, it's a result of not understanding how horses learn and how training works, and it's basically reinforcing the wrong behaviors. So for example, if a horse comes comes to us and we've got treats in our pocket, and they come over and they start nibbling our pocket, and we pull out a treat and we give it to them, we're essentially rewarding that nibbling behavior. And the next time that can start to escalate. Maybe they get a little more pushy when they go to our pocket, or they start to actually grab and pull at our clothing. And if we continue to give the treats and reward this kind of behavior, then we can escalate it into the things that people most fear when connecting food. So a study was done, and they looked at a number of different people, a number of different farms that used treats and used foods, and they basically just verified this concept, is that it's not the food itself that is creating the bad behaviors, it's the fact that people are giving the food in a way that reinforces bad behaviors, and that basically tells the horse that these things, biting, pushing at me, pinning your ears a little bit, these are the things that give you food, instead of teaching the horse to move their head away, to stand quietly, and to take the food with soft lips. So I have another video that I'm going to link below where I described how you can actually, go through this process of teaching your horse to have better food manners. And I did it with a cute little pony, so I'm going to save that for that video. But what I want to talk about next is just some of the tools that we can use in positive reinforcement. So the first thing is, when we're going to be using food, we want to be organized with it, because it's important to make sure that we're having good timing and that we are feeding at the right moment so that we're reinforcing the correct behaviors. We want to be organized. So if you have pockets like I've got today, you can put your treats in the pockets. However, if you don't have enough pocket space, or if you're not wearing clothing that has easy to access pockets, then it's a good idea to get something like a treat pouch or a treat bucket to be able to hold that food. So this is just one that I found on Amazon. It's super simple, and it snaps closed so that the food doesn't fall out, but then you can easily open it up, and it holds not only treats, but it holds grain really well. So that kind of brings me to the next question that I often get is, what kind of food should I be using when I'm using it to train? And the answer is it really depends. And if I have a horse that I'm going to be using a lot of food, I know I'm going to be doing a lot of reinforcements, I'll usually just use their grain and I'll put it in this little pouch. That way I'm not worried about doing anything nutritionally that's going to impact them. For example, if I don't want to be feeding tons and tons of high sugar, like commercial treats, if I'm going to be using a lot of food in a single training session. So that's when I'll use the grain, and the treat pouch is really good for holding that. And then I'll also use just regular commercial treats. There's a whole variety of big ones, small ones. If I'm only giving a few rewards to reward something really specific in a training session, for example, standing still at the mounting block, or maybe a reward for like one particular thing that I've been really focused on with that horse, then sometimes I'll just stick a few of these bigger treats in my pocket. And then another idea is to use alfalfa cubes. So just another example, if you have a horse where nutrition and limiting sugar and starch is more of a concern, these can be a good idea. You just want to make sure that you break them into small pieces, and you're not giving like a big old alfalfa cube at one time to your horse. So as far as other training tools, one of the main concepts that we use when we're using food is the idea of a marker signal. And a marker signal basically just tells the horse that that was right. So it's something that the horse learns to connect with the food, so that when he hears it, he understands the last thing he did was the right thing to do. One of the classic marker signals is the clicker. So there's a variety of different clickers out there, and it just provides a unique sound that we can easily connect to the food so the horse understands it. Now, of course, the downside of a clicker when we're training horses is it's one more thing to hold. So you can also use a tongue click, which is, again, a distinctive sound, and it's different than kind of that kissing noise that we use to usually encourage more action or like more forward movement from horses. So that's the idea of the marker signal. Now, the other thing that can be really helpful when we are doing positive reinforcement training is something that the horse can touch. So this is called a target, and the horse can learn to basically follow the target with their nose, and as a result of that, we can teach them a number of different things. I also find that using targets is a really helpful way for people to just get started and kind of have a little bit of fun and work on the idea of having good timing and teaching their horse good manners around the food. So what I have here is a homemade target stick. It's basically just a little foam ball on the end of a stick, and this is something really simple that you can start to use to have your horse touch the ball on the end, move it different places, and you can create all kinds of behaviors and honestly just have a little fun and kind of bring out more of the curious thinking side of your horse. And then I have a jolly ball here. A lot of people have these around their barn, and this is another thing that you can hold, and you can toss it around. You can teach the horse to follow it. Just kind of a fun way to start experimenting with using food in your training. Using food with your horse can be a lot of fun, and it can also be a really powerful and useful part of your training program. So check out the resources that we've got listed below, and then as always, if you're watching this anywhere besides crktrainingblog.com. Go there now, subscribe, and you'll never miss another one of these videos. Thanks for watching. I've got an extra little news flash for you. If you're watching this video soon after we publish it, we're going to be at Equine Affair, November 10th through the 13th, 2016. Equine Affair is located in Massachusetts at the Big E Expo Center, and it's a great event with a lot of shopping and a lot of educational opportunities. And we're going to have a booth there, and we've created a whole bunch of these fun little target sticks that we're going to be giving away just as kind of a little appreciation gift and something that you can use with your own horse. So if you're coming to Equine Affair, make sure that you stop by our CRK training booth, and I'd love to send you home with your own target stick so that you can start working on this stuff right away.